Tranquila, mija, ya viene el helicóptero por ti. Ya viene el helicóptero. Tranquila, hija, tranquila. Vas a estar bien.
What do you think about when you hear the word narcos?
You have so much money you can't even count it.
Probably ruthless men like El Chapo and Pablo Escobar, surrounded by fleets of sicarios, right? You wouldn't be wrong. They're usually the ones shown on TV. But what happens when women climb the cartel ranks and get to the top? And why are they so much more violent than their male counterparts? Yep, there are female narcos out there so violent that they scared their own boyfriends into contacting the police.
Hi guys, welcome to Cartel City.
These are the outrageous and sometimes tragic stories of the 5 most violent female drug lords. Jocelyn Alejandra Nino, aka La Flaca. La Flaca didn't have the glitz and glam life associated with cartel life. She was born in the 1990s to a poor family in Tamaulipas, Mexico. As it goes in many cases, her desire for quick cash pushed her toward illegal work. Jocelyn was still a teenager when she became a member of the notorious Gulf Cartel. By the time she was in high school, she was their paid assassin, one of the youngest female paid assassins ever. Her nickname, La Flaca, means the skinny one. Jocelyn was quite a tiny person. As you can see in her picture, that firearm looks way too big for her. Perhaps a sad reminder of the young age she started this kind of work. And it gets darker. Many young girls start their work for cartels as street workers. On January 5th, 2015, someone leaked this picture of La Flaca to a page called Valor por Tamaulipas. Before long, it was made public on Facebook and Twitter too. It was as fascinating as disturbing to see such a young girl smiling with a big firearm. There was something else. There was nothing rich or glamorous about the background of her clothing. If anything, La Flaca's room seemed very modest. Is this the reality for most cartel members? And is it really worth it to do illegal work if you're not going to get rich fast? These were fresh topics of discussion at the time, but for La Flaca, this was a death sentence. By now, she was working for the Los Ciclones gang, which was at war with Los Metros. Los Metros leaked La Flaca's picture, making her an easy target for the enemy cartels. At the height of the war, Los Ciclones leader, Ciclone 7, sent La Flaca to fight Los Metros from Rio Bravo, which was Los Metros' territory. La Flaca was a sitting duck. It was almost like Ciclone 7 sacrificed her, knowing she would soon be arrested after her leaked picture anyway. On April 13, 2015, police officers discovered La Flaca's dismembered body inside a freezer in a parking lot in Tamaulipas. As they kept looking, they discovered more body parts hidden in plastic bags. In fact, La Flaca had been dismembered into so many pieces that she was only identified thanks to her distinctive tattoo. She had Nino written on her arm. This was her family name, but it also meant child. Perhaps this is the sad twist to La Flaca's story. She was still a child when she died, in her late teens or early 20s. And to make matters worse, she'd been tortured first, too, while Los Metros gang members were trying to make her talk about Los Ciclones. Finally, Los Metros took pictures of the dismembered bodies they left behind, La Flaca and 2 other sicarios. They posted the pictures online with the caption,
"This will happen to all the filthy who support Los Ciclones. Keep sending these
Cartels are a dog-eat-dog world, and La Flaca paid the ultimate price. Griselda Blanco. Griselda Blanco was once known as the Black Widow and the White Powder Godmother. She partook in narcotics-fueled orgies and died in a shootout, aged 69. She was born in Colombia in 1943. When she was 11, she attempted the kidnapping and ransom of a young boy from a rich family. When the family failed to pay, she shot and killed the boy. She was a problem child to say the least, but her house was in dismay. When she was 19, she ran away from home to escape her mother's boyfriend violating her again, and she settled in Medellin. That's right, Pablo Escobar's hometown. So it wasn't long before she became a part of his cartel. During the 1970s, Griselda illegally immigrated to the US and settled in New York, then Miami. From there, she would oversee the Medellin cartel's notorious white powder smuggling. During the 1980s, white powder was trafficked more than weed, and Griselda was at the center of the terrible Miami drug war. Griselda was a 5-foot-tall mother of 4. Seeing her, you really wouldn't peg her for a vicious drug lord. But at the height of her career, she ordered assassinations left and right, destroying enemy cartels in their claims to the white powder trade. Griselda is responsible for anywhere between 40 and 200 deaths, and some of the victims were her own lovers. In fact, Griselda murdered all her 3 husbands. The first to go was a petty forger named Carlos Trujillo, after a business dispute. Then she fatally shot her second husband, Alberto Bravo, after she suspected him of cheating on her. In 1983, she killed her last husband after he left her, but not before butchering 8 strippers who she thought were sleeping with him. And to make matters even worse, she had a German shepherd called Hitler. At her peak, she was making $8 million a month, and her lifestyle was as hectic as it was outrageous. According to The Independent, the Black Widow organized orgies and changed her appearance dramatically almost overnight. If she felt powerful, she would look like a femme fatale. If she became paranoid about rival cartels being out to get her, she wouldn't groom for days, becoming almost scary looking. On February 17, 1985, she was arrested in her home by the DEA. She was charged with conspiring to manufacture, import, and distribute coke and sentenced to 15 years.
The fact that the homicide rate dropped dramatically after she was arrested.
But by the time of her arrest, Griselda had spread nothing but pain and suffering, and now it was all coming back to her. 3 of her 4 sons were butchered, and her surviving child, Michael, survived 7 assassination attempts. In 2004, Griselda was released and deported to Colombia. In 2012, aged 69, Griselda was visiting a butcher's shop with her pregnant daughter-in-law when 2 hired assassins jumped off their motorbikes and shot her twice in the head. Her brutal death stands as a symbol of the gruesome realities of cartel lives. Maria Guadalupe Lopez Esquivel, aka La Catrina. Much like La Flaca, La Catrina climbed the cartel ranks at a very early age and met an early and brutal end. Maria Guadalupe Lopez Esquivel was the daughter of a rancher and a housewife, but she hated her humble beginnings and she hated school. So, in 2017, she ran off from home with her boyfriend, Miguel Fernandez. He was a top cartel baron, working for the very violent Jalisco New Generation cartel. Soon enough, Maria was working for them herself, and her career outlasted her relationship. She was thirsty for money, power, and all the luxuries that being a top cartel dog can get you. Maria took the name La Catrina, an ode to the Day of the Dead figure, and she started showing off her new riches on social media. Initially, La Catrina was part of a sicarios gang, young, pretty women who used their beauty and innocent looks to lure and kill members from the rival gangs. But La Catrina wanted more. Within months, she became the gang leader. Then she was promoted to commander of a hit squad. Under her command, the squad committed kidnapping, extortion, and several assassinations. And La Catrina wasn't just targeting rival cartels. She was going for police officers and civilians. She was one of the most ruthless gang leaders in the world. In October 2017, police officers were executing a house search warrant when they were ambushed by La Catrina's squad. It was a bloodbath. The squad took 13 lives and set 2 police cars on fire. La Catrina felt invincible. After all, she had a fleet of violent sicarios under her command. But Mexican authorities knew she had to be brought down soon. The police had incepted the cartel communication, and they had heard La Catrina giving assassination orders. Now, they had a warrant for her arrest, dead or alive. On January 10, 2020, the National Guard received a tip about La Catrina's location. Within an hour, the squad's safe house was surrounded by the army and a violent shootout started. But this time, it was the squad that took the hit. La Catrina was shot in the jugular. An officer caught her very last minutes on camera.
Tranquila, mija, ya viene el helicóptero por ti. Ya viene el helicóptero. Tranquila, hija, tranquila. Vas a estar bien.
While the men in her squad were put down on their knees and cuffed, La Catrina was rushed to the helicopter, which was due to fly to the nearest hospital. But a few minutes later, La Catrina gave her last breath. She was only 21. Mallory Chacon.
She was part of this web that went right to the top of Guatemala's political as well as criminal elite. She was absolutely right in the eye of the storm.
Mallory Chacon shocked many with her cunning, ruthlessness, and intelligence. She stands as the inspiration behind Netflix's Queen of the South. She was born in Guatemala City, the capital of Guatemala, in 1972. From a very young age, it was clear Mallory was very smart.
She was one of the few women who was decidedly middle class. I spoke to a former DEA agent and he said that had Marjorie been in the legal world, she could have reached CEO position in some big company, that she was very astute and had very high-end skills. And it just so happens that she decided to apply those in the drug trade instead.
Mallory was still in her 20s when she became one of Guatemala's top money launderers. Then she became one of Central America's top money launderers. According to the DEA, she was cleaning $10 million every month at her peak. And most of the money laundering she was doing was for Mexican cartels. By collaborating with Mexico and other countries, Mallory formed connections that helped her climb the cartel ranks. Soon, money laundering wasn't enough for her. In April 2004, she helped move a ton of white powder to Colombia through Honduras. Then she helped form Las Patronas, a group of ruthless female drug lords in Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. But don't think that just because they are women, they were more merciful than their male counterparts.
I mean, I was told she was sending out hits on people. I was told her brothers would kidnap young women, take them up to their mansion, pass them around the security guards.
Reportedly, Mallory surrounded herself with an army of soldiers, so she was virtually untouchable, and she would use her personal army to intimidate people into doing her bidding. It was around that time that she earned the nickname Queen of the South. By now, Mallory Chacon had people infiltrated in the Guatemalan government.
She was part of this web that went right to the top of Guatemala's political as well as criminal elite. She was absolutely right in the eye of the storm.
Her soldiers were now officially assigned to her.
Mallory was guarded by the National Police, said the former cartel employee. She had 3 or 4 cars with her from the Ministry of the Interior. It was security that was assigned to her.
But you know how when someone feels invincible, they get cockier and easier to arrest? Mallory started overseeing huge white powder shipments into the US. So in the mid-2010s, the DEA got a warrant for her arrest. Mallory realized she was going down. So she made one big career twist.
Marjorie was incredibly valuable to the DEA. And when they sanctioned her, she realized that if she wanted to stay out of prison for the rest of her life, she was going to have to cooperate substantially.
Mallory flipped as soon as the first DEA agent contacted her. She helped them bring down her cartel if they reduced her prison sentence. Mallory helped the DEA bring down dozens of cartel members, mafia families, and corrupt officials, up to the Guatemalan Vice President Roxana Baldetti. Her days of ruthless deals and senseless violence were over.
Los testimonios de Chacón sirvieron para encauzar y condenar a varios acusados de narcotráfico y lavado de dinero, incluidos los empresarios Lorenzana de Guatemala.
It was a bold move and a drastic turn for Mallory, but her prison sentence explains it. In 2014, she was facing 26 years behind bars in a Miami federal prison. In 2015, her sentence was reduced to 12 years. And in 2019, Mallory was freed on bail after spending less than 5 years in prison. The former Queen of the South now lives a quiet life away from Guatemala. Her cartel and connections certainly wouldn't be happy to see her after collaborating with the DEA. Sandra Avila Beltran. While some people believe Netflix's show Queen of the South is based on Mallory Chacon, others argue that Sandra Avila Beltran is its source. She was once known as the Queen of the Pacific. Sandra was born into the Sinaloa cartel. Her mother's family were notorious heroin smugglers, and her father, Alfonso Avila Quintero, was the brother of the Guadalajara cartel leader. Sandra grew up in the 1960s, when the Guadalajara cartel was growing at a fast pace. By 13, she was her dad's official money counter, witnessing illegal business and even murder in the process. When she was 21, she became a prominent figure in the Sinaloa cartel. overseeing illegal substance shipments to the US. She would be married twice, but both unions would be more tactical than based on true love. Both Sandra's husbands were ex-police commanders turned traffickers. They knew the police world inside and out, and it was with their help that Sandra escaped prison for such a long time. Through an ironic twist, though, both her husbands were assassinated. But romantic relationships weren't Sandra's only cartel connections. At one point, Sandra became close friends with El Chapo himself. This is how she became head of public relations for the Sinaloa cartel. Then, through her relationship with Juan Diego Espinoza Ramirez, aka the Tiger, Sandra established a first-time connection between the Sinaloa cartel and the Norte de Valle cartel in Colombia. Now, Sandra was making millions, but nothing lasts forever. In 2001, the US seized a tuna fishing boat transporting 9 tons of white powder. This is how Sandra earned her famous nickname, the Queen of the Pacific. This is also how she earned a cohort of officers trying to arrest her. Sandra spent 6 full years on the run, and her son was kidnapped in the cartel chaos. In 2007, she was finally arrested.
Su nombre, por favor.
Sandra Ávila Beltrán.
¿De dónde es originaria?
Tijuana, Baja California.
When the officer asked her what business she was in, she said clothing. She insisted she was innocent and that prison was no place for her. While in prison, she complained about insects in her cell and bribed her way to luxury, chef-made food, alcohol, and cigarettes. When she was eventually denied restaurant-made food, she complained that her basic rights were being violated. In 2015, she was released and is now living a reclusive life in Guadalajara. No one is truly untouchable in a cartel. What goes around comes around, even for the big kingpins. And when it comes to queenpins, they really can outdo their male counterparts in ruthlessness and violence. But there's a sad reason for this.
There is a tendency for women to be more violent than men, so that the men who are around them will take them seriously.
It's a game of proving oneself. Will it get worse before it gets better? Let me know what you think in the comments section, and before you go, don't forget to like and subscribe.